Thank you very much, Jennifer, for those kind words. And thank everybody for coming along to our first Africa Day. We are nervous but delighted to be here. And thank you, Dame Fiona and Emmanuel for hosting us. I only want to briefly give a little account of what Cambridge-Africa is all about, to try and put the day in context. I apologise to those of you who have heard me go on about this before, but for anybody here that hasn't, is not familiar with what we're trying to do and what the programme's all about, I thought it was well worth just giving a few minutes to say where we're at. So the Cambridge-Africa Programme, our overall idea is to link Cambridge to Africa to support African research and African scholarship. And as Jennifer said, that basically this really, for me, had its beginnings in 2008. I worked in Africa with African colleagues for 30-odd years, thinking they're wonderful and thinking they should deserve more opportunities to make a contribution and have that contribution recognised. So this really emerged from individual long-term collaborations between Cambridge and African researchers. I had the experience of going to a meeting in Brazil and bumping into somebody who was working with a different discipline but on the same problem as me, and asking where they came from, where were they based, and they told me it was Cambridge. And then I found they actually worked about 100 yards from where I did and had done for the last 7 or 8 years. So although scattered about the university, there were plenty of people working in Africa and with Africans and supporting Africa. There was no strategy or no network or no way of doing this systematically. So our aim was to produce a coordinated programme to make the full range of Cambridge's world-class research expertise available to support and mentor African researchers, and to foster Cambridge-Africa collaborations across all disciplines with an active programme of engagement and partnership with African universities. And very important in this from the beginning, Professor James Wood from the Vet School and Megan Vaughan, who was the then director of the Centre for African Studies. Now at the moment, what we do is tie together different initiatives and different schemes and try to bring them together in a coordinated way. And it started really with Wellcome Trust putting money into infection immunity training in Uganda, and we partnered this exercise, and then that was in 2008, and the next year they had strategic awards for capacity building in Africa, and we then partnered in Thrive, a network of 7 African research institutes and universities in 4 African countries, Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. But we're able to use this experience to leverage more money out of other funders like the Carnegie Corporation, and we were able to put together different schemes. And Carnegie, for example, wanted partnership between West Africa and East Africa. We now partner the University of Ghana as well as Makerere in Uganda. And they were also interested in a different range of subjects. So we were able to include humanities, the social sciences, and engineering. So we were expanding out, and Isaac Newton Trust gave us money for more fellowships. And then we were very happy to receive support from the Alvarado Trust, which allowed us a free hand to support any partnership, any new partnership between a Cambridge and African researcher in any African country on any subject area. We're getting further funds recently for capacity building and support in terms of the Wellcome Trust-Cambridge-Africa Centre for Global Health Research. So we've actually, in this time, been able to expand out from our my research area on infection immunity, and now the ambition is to cover all subjects across the university. But the common feature of all these schemes is to take a coordinated multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach to support training for African researchers on African priorities in Africa. And we try and do this, hopefully, in a proactive, creative and high-profile kind of way. But the very essence from the beginning, in our first couple of initiatives, was actually the idea of supporting PhD studentships, not at that stage in Cambridge, but in African universities. So supporting those African students to do PhDs in Africa on African priorities. And to do this with a 3 years in the programme in their own university, with the option or the encouragement to come to Cambridge for at least a year, and to have co-mentorship and co-supervision with world-class Cambridge researchers. And the idea then was not just to support the student, but support the local supervisors in Africa, and to have exchange visits, and to build up capacity around those PhDs. And do a similar thing with postdocs, to encourage them to actually develop their careers till they became independent, self-funding, internationally competitive scientists. To do this, we said, how do we match up the best African students, the best projects, with people in Cambridge that can support them by having the same interests and similar interests? So what we initially did was to build up a database of 100 world-class research groups across all health-related disciplines who are keen to interact and support African scientists. And then in partnership with the Centre for African Studies, who had their own visiting fellowship programme for many years, we now built up, including social sciences and humanities, a database of 180 Cambridge leading academics who want to support and lend their name to supporting African researchers. But we found this, actually the database wasn't enough. What we needed was dedicated coordinators in Cambridge to match the African fellows with Cambridge co-mentors, and to look after all aspects of the interactions between them in terms of visas, training portfolios, and high-level interaction with the funders and the African partners. Our first part-time coordinator was with the Thrive study in 2009, which was Pauline. Pauline is still here. Now Pauline coordinates the Cmabridge-Africa Programme and lends a hand with the Global Health Research Centre. We also have Jenny Mackay, who's the coordinator of CAPREX and the Alvarado Trust Fund, and Sophia, who is actually now taking over and Thrive. And we hope to add another coordinator very soon. So just briefly, you can see that we've expanded out. It's very important to note that with CAPREX, we've been able to put not just research academic training, but also do it with the help of RU, who have put on courses for African administrative fellowships, research administrators, both in Ghana, Uganda, and in Cambridge. Alvarado is supporting new projects in 11 African countries at the moment, and we are expanding. We have expanded quite well in terms of subject range and geographical area since then. So in that time, we've had plenty of African visiting fellows working across the university with mentorship. We tried to make them actually be part of the Cambridge community, to experience the whole thing, not just focus on their own subject, but to internationalize their PhDs and get them to meet and have intellectual exchanges and support across the university. We've had initially very good support from King's, Wolfston, Hughes Hall and Churchill, and this is expanding with more colleges becoming involved. We get high-level interactions. Visiting Cambridge benefits from actually lots of work in Africa and visiting Africa and widening the experience of African researchers at senior level and at postdoctoral level. And we are actively involved in lots of other activities, so supporting short courses and workshops in Africa, supporting African students and staff in entrepreneurial and volunteering activities. And at the moment, Cambridge is supporting education and training courses spontaneously developed by people in Cambridge, in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, and Sierra Leone. We're organising, it's an important part, to have networking events here in Cambridge, and that varies from getting feedback from our African students, including the undergraduates, and saying what's good about Cambridge and what's bad about Cambridge. And why is it so difficult for African students to actually get to Cambridge? This is an important feedback which we are feeding back into the system to make it easier and a more welcoming place for Africans, but also having social events and get-togethers, and including, for example, an active program of showcase events so the visiting fellows can present their work. Important has been the Cmabridge-Africa King's Seminars, where we introduce a wide range of subjects to emphasize that it's not just an education in a narrow subject area, but it's a general education, and you can meet and internationalize your experience. And major events like this one, our first Africa Day. So, we think we are doing okay. We think that the next steps are to expand Cambridge-Africa, and the important thing is to firmly embed it into the fabric of the university and to make support for and partnership with Africa an important and sustainable feature of Cambridge life. A feature that, like many other things in this university, those of us working here can be really proud of. So, what we need to do that, we ask for your support. We will seek more funding. Anything you can do to help us with that would be extremely gratefully received. But we thank you most of all for being here. And we hope this will be the beginning, really, of something which will place the interaction of Cambridge with Africa as central to our purpose in life. And thank you very much indeed.